Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the second shelf and to another book haul. Yes, I bought more books and I want to share them with you. But before I begin, about buying books, because there's a lot of videos always making the rounds of, book buying ban and why not to buy too many books or whatever. And if you follow me, you probably know my philosophy about the books I buy, and I've never employed a book buying ban. I try to have a certain limit euro-wise, because I pay in euros here in Cologne. But my only rule is I keep track of the books I read every month. I keep track of the books that I buy every month. And my only rule is that each month I don't buy more books than I read. I try to read more books than I buy. Most of the time that's successful, this philosophy. Sometimes I have a month where I actually buy more books than I read. But in over a whole year, I've always managed to read more than I buy, and then I'm fine. That doesn't mean that I read the books that I buy immediately. Sometimes they stay on the to-read shelf for quite a while. I don't care about that. As long as I read more than I buy, I'm fine. Anyway, just wanted to get this out of the way. On to the books that I bought in December. It's not that many. It's a stack of 6 books. And the first one is a classic, Jane Austen's Northanger Abbey, which was first published in 1818. The last one published, it was published posthumously, but it was actually the first book she wrote. And it's the last book of Jane Austen that I have to read, that I haven't read yet, not even in German. If you're following me, you probably know that I wanted to read or reread all of Jane Austen's novels this year. And this is the last one left. And it's supposed to be a bit of a satirical approach to the Gothic novel, with this heroine who, is not doing that well, all kinds of misadventures, but in the end, of course, she prevails, like all the heroines do in Jane Austen's books. So I'm looking forward to that. It's not that big of a book, and I really, really hope to be able to read this in December so that I can successfully check that off my list that I did read / reread, because some of the books I read in German when I was young, but that I read all of Jane Austen's novels in English in 2019. So fingers crossed and wish me luck. The second book that I bought in December is a memoir, Miriam Toews' The Swing Low, subtitle, but I don't think it's in here, but the subtitle on Goodreads says A Life, and it's a book about Miriam Toews' father and his struggle with depression while they live in a small Mennonite community in Canada. Miriam Toews is a Canadian author. I really love her work. I read Women Talking this year, which I thought was brilliant. I read All My Puny Sorrows last year, and a couple more of her books, and I just adore her work. I think she's brilliant. So this one, I try to get through her backlist and read all her books. And this one I haven't read yet, obviously. And I will be buddy reading this, or I already started buddy reading this, I should say, because today is Wednesday, and we started buddy reading last Monday, 2 days ago, with Patrice, who is also a regular commenter on videos. She doesn't have her own channel, but she's active on Goodreads, and so. Yeah, I was thrilled that we came up with this buddy read because, like I said, Miriam Toews. I mean, what else? Next up is Tin Man by Sarah Winman, first published in 2017, and you probably have seen this book because it made the rounds on BookTube last year everywhere. It was nominated for the Costa Award, and I've seen this book really everywhere on BookTube. Sarah Winman is a British author and actress. I have never read her, even though her first book was very successful. I came to know her, quote unquote, when I saw this book making the rounds last year. And it was so popular and so many people talked about that book that I decided to lay off for a while. I sometimes have that when a book is discussed so often and so extensively on BookTube that I feel as if I have already read it. And then I decide, oftentimes I decide to wait with my actually reading it, not virtually reading it by watching all those BookTube videos, but actually reading it for a while so that because my memory is really bad, so until I sort of forget what people said about the book. I mean, I know that a lot of people love this book, but that's basically the main thing I remember, and I prefer that, especially with a book that was so very popular. So, Tin Man is about the friendship between Michael and Alice. As far as I understood, that's basically what I remember, and also that we start seeing them when they were young teenagers or children, and then we move forward in time, and Alice is married now, and Michael is nowhere to be seen, and we will wonder what happened in those years between childhood and adulthood. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm happy about my bad memory that I really can't remember details of what people said about the book. So I will be able to start this fresh. Oh, and I should also say that all the books, except for the Jane Austen novel, I bought secondhand. Economize a little bit. Even though I don't have rules, I try to economize. Anyway, the next book is a non-fiction book, Janine Di Giovanni. Here we go. Janine Di Giovanni, The Morning They Came for Us, Dispatches from Syria, and it was first published a couple of years ago. I talked about this book in a new release video, I think, when it came out in the US. Sort of vaguely remember that I talked about the book, and then I talked about my bad memory just now in the previous with the previous book. I forgot about it. So when I saw it in the used bookstore, I finally snatched up a copy. Janine Di Giovanni is a US-born reporter. She mainly reports on war zones and in war zones, and this one is in 2012 Syria, when Di Giovanni went to Syria to report about the uprising, the war there, and she always interviews people directly involved in the war, and actual people living there. I like her style of reporting, and I'm really interested in Syria to read more about that region, that country. So I'm, with all the books, of course, I'm looking forward to reading it, but I hope to get to this sooner rather than later. Next up is another fiction book by an author that if you're following my channel, you know that I love, and that is Janet Winterson. And this is her book, Wait, which is a retelling of the Atlas myth. So the Greek myth of Atlas, who, carries the world on his shoulder. This is one of the few books by Janet Winterson that I haven't read yet. And for some reason or the other. I think I'm now into probably 97% of the books that of her that I read. And sometimes there is a book that sort of slips through the cracks. probably also the cracks of my memory, which I talked about extensively already in this video. Anyway, I saw this book in the bookstore, and I knew that I hadn't read it yet, so I bought it. Retelling of the Atlas Mist, that's all I know. It's more a novella. It's 150 pages long, and I'm not that fond of retellings, I have to say, but it's Janet Winterson, and I want to read all her books, so there you go. And the last one in this December book haul is Karen Russell's Swamplandia, with an exclamation mark at the end. Published a couple of years ago in 2011, and that's Karen Russell is one of these authors. She's an American authors, and Swamplandia is one of these books that I sort of, know that I want to read them sometime, and then it gets put off until you find the book in the used bookstore, and then you think, now I'm going to buy it and hopefully also read it at some point. What I read about the book, it sounded really weird in a good way. It's set in Florida with a sort of an alligator wrestling family, and one of the main characters is Ava. She's a young teenage girl, and she has to work in this family business, and you also have a sister who has an affair with a ghost called Dredgeman, and Ava not only has to deal with alligators, but she also has to deal with her grief because her mother just died. And it seemed really weird book, a really weird setting. And as if you know me, that can go either way. I might end up loving it because I love me a good weird story, but I might also end up just, rolling my eyes and think, what the bloody hell is this? So I don't know yet, but it's one of those books that have been on the list for such a long time that when I see the book lying in the bookstore, that I pick it up. If you have read it, let me know. And that goes for all the books, except for the Jane Austen maybe, but you can tell me whether you like Northanger Abbey, of course. But if you have read any of the books that I hauled, let me know whether you liked them. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you have enjoyed that haul. Talk to me in the comments, not only about these books, but maybe about books that you just recently bought and are looking forward to. And I will see you all soon in the next one. Bye-bye.